What are your best/worst encounters with players? I met Sol Campbell while he was still a Spurs legend. First time outside WHL, and a second time about 2 years later outside England's 96 Euros training camp. He bloody well remembered me. I kid you not, but I asked for his autograph both times, and the second time he just smiled and said, "What, another one? I gave you one last time," before signing my bit of paper. With all the autographs he must sign, how the hell did he remember me? I've never been able to hate him. Top man. Worst? Can't say I've had a bad one, but once my dad and I, pulled up behind David Ginola at some traffic lights. He was driving a Ford Focus, and my dad jumped out to wish him luck. Apparently he was very friendly, but just as the lights were going green he rather sheepishly said, "It's the wife's car by the way," which I thought was pretty funny. I saw Zola in Munich after the Champions League final. We were both having a really hard time getting a cab, as all the drivers were refusing to pick up Chelsea fans/non-German speakers. I saw him the next day in the airport. The entire terminal erupted into song for him. He's a charming man. I've posted most of this story before. It fits well in this thread though. This is in the best category. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, or 20 legend if you will. He was not famous then, but he will be very soon. This was when he played for Molde, the team he now coaches with great success. It was 1996, on the day Norway would play a World Cup qualifier against Azerbaijan. My youth team coach had in some magical way managed to arrange for my team to train with the national team pre-match. We were about 13 years old. Each of us was assigned a player on the national team, who we would spend an hour or so with. When I got Solskjaer I was thoroughly disappointed. He was a nobody, and I was really hoping for Øyvind Leonhardsen, for those who remember him. Anyway, Solskjaer was the nicest guy in the world for that hour. He was so patient with my 13-year-old self. He gave compliments on my passing abilities, white line hindsight, and asked me a lot about school. He told me how he thought I should make an effort to do well there. I remember we spent a good part of the session lined up in front of a goal and took turns for volleys. I would make a high pass. He would net the ball with a volley. He would make high pass. I would blast the ball off target or not hit it at all. Then he went on the pitch 6 or 7 hours later and scored this beauty. Manchester United had a scout in the stands that day. He was there to watch Ronnie Johnson. Ole's performance must have impressed him, because he was signed instead, shortly after the Azerbaijan game. The rest is history, and I like to joke that he would never have made it as far as he has if it hadn't been for my high passes during practice that day. Best. Had shots with Fabregas and his GF in Ibiza. Worst. Didn't have a pen when meeting Zlatan in Milan, so I just shook his hand and smiled. His hands are huge and his smile is honestly shaped like split grapefruit. He has a massive mouth. He likely eats copious amounts of vagina. Best experience wasn't with a player, but with a manager. It was in Philadelphia during the pre-season when Mourinho first came to Chelsea. We were going to play AC Milan in the Eagle Stadium. I was in the same hotel as the Chelsea team. As a side note, Freddie Adu was there too, and I saw him talking to Chelsea people. I'm somewhat glad that didn't work out. Anyway, I was wandering around the hotel, as is my wont, when I ran into none other than the special one himself. I was wearing a Chelsea shirt. Instead of a player name on the back I had, and for the number 1 had one. Mourinho had never seen such a shirt before, and we stopped and chatted, and he was very happy to sign my shirt. Later I ran into Kezman and Cech in the lobby. My brother got Kezman's signature, and I got Cech's. Haha, I got the last laugh there. Cech is a lovely man, and, unlike Cudicini, he actually spelled my name correctly. I should note here that my name is 4 letters long and a rather common one. The next day we got all the signatures as the players were leaving for the game, but nothing will ever top meeting Mourinho like that. Was at a Chelsea training session in Seattle this past summer, before they played the Sounders, and as the session ended, all the fans were screaming the names of all the big stars like Lampard, Hazard, and more. But, at the top of my lungs, I was screaming for Benayoun, who just came off of a fantastic loan season at Arsenal. He had been walking across the pitch to the tunnel, but heard me screaming, turned, and with a huge smile, walked over to me. I said, Arsenal still loves you, Yossi, and the guy gave me a huge hug, said, thank you so much, my friend. I wish I was still there, and left. I was so torn between ecstasy and melancholy after that. Met Freddie Lundberg at a Seattle Sounders game when he was injured. I talked to him for a few minutes and he was super nice. Also asked him why he wasn't underwear modeling for Calvin Klein anymore because Randus grabbed my package, mate. We laughed, he shook my hand, and now I've only got 10 more invincibles to meet. My best experience would be Ashley Cole turning up as the surprise guest at my football team's presentation evening. We were an under-9s team and his cousin played for us. Little did any of us know that they had organized for him to travel to Kent from London on a Saturday night to give out our awards. He was only about 19/20/21 at the time, and not the cock he appears to be nowadays, as he signed everything put in front of him and posed for every photo. When it got to about 10 PM, he decided he wanted to stay and turned down a night out clubbing. He had planned to stay in this grotty social club and talk to anyone who wanted to talk to him. Always had a soft spot for Arsenal after he did this. Not really good or bad, but certainly memorable / my only encounter. Back in 2002 I was leafleting outside of a building in Manhattan in protest of the building owners who were trying to break the janitors union at the building. Some angry right-winger, think Rush Limbaugh, not Antonio Valencia, came up and threw a hot cup of coffee at me and another guy. It burst on the wall behind us and showered all over us. Not 5 minutes later, Luis Figo, along with his gorgeous wife, came by. He wouldn't take a flyer and seemed a little anxious, but I really don't blame him. I wouldn't take a flyer from some random dude that is soaking wet, reeks of coffee, and is really excited to meet me either. He was in town because just a few days later Real Madrid was playing Roma in a friendly at Giants Stadium, which I attended. As a Portuguese person who almost idolizes Figo, you are the luckiest man I have yet to hear of. I met Zlatan Ibrahimovic at a restaurant once. We'd accidentally been given his table on holidays. Apparently he was fond of the restaurant and had a specific table he liked, and the management had messed up and gotten their days wrong. It was Tuesday and they thought he was coming on Thursday or something like that. Anyway, the manager, completely embarrassed, "This is a pretty nice restaurant," comes by and says, "I'm so sorry, but we'd like to move you to another table if you could be troubled, and we'll gladly compensate you for the cost of the meal and any other meal you'd like while you're here." My sister and cousin were both like, "Yeah, that's cool," and I kind of played the asshole a bit. "I'm sorry, I just don't understand. We've been here for 15 minutes, we've just ordered. Can't we finish our meal here?" Then out of nowhere fucking Zlatan shows up next to the manager and says, "Let them finish. I have time." And I, being a huge Ibra fan, said, "Oh wow, I had no idea. Please feel free to give them the table." He was grateful, shook my hand and said thanks, then gave me a card with his number on it and told me to give him a call later. After working up the nerve, I gave him a call that night, and to make a long story short, we had a glorious 11-month love affair, man on man, that I shall never forget. Our bodies intertwined as one, and from the beauty of Morocco, to the French Riviera, to the snorkeling in the Galapagos, Zlatan Ibrahimovic and I made glorious gay love to each other on 6 of the 7 continents. I was invested as duck. I've met a lot of Chelsea players. Lampard was perhaps the most friendly. Matic is a lanky mother ducker. I met Luke Shaw at Top Golf last year. Mate and I ended up in the bay next to him downstairs. He was there with 3/4 mates. Quick glance over, I thought I recognized him. Then after a couple of minutes and a few moments of awkward eye contact I realized who it was. Subtly told my mate, oblivious United fan, who completely didn't recognize him, and we contemplated asking for a photo. Unfortunately, before we did, one of the members of staff came over to tell them that a bay had freed up for them upstairs and escorted them all upstairs. Seemed pretty quiet compared to his mates and was quite reserved. Nice guy, but probably a lot more ordinary than I was expecting for a Premier League and England footballer. I went to school with him for 8 years / played on the school team with him. Absolute chunt. Bullied all the little kids and just such an arrogant asshole. Haha, either he has grown out of that, or I didn't get the genuine Luke Shaw experience. Yeah, if I were there I probably would have hit his head with a golf club. If there's anyone in life who I've wanted to fail and become a homeless heroin addict, it's him. Haha, must have been a P-Rick then. I met Lewis Dunk in a club in Brighton about 3 years ago. Was standing at the bar to order a drink and he was next to me. Ordered a Georgia bomb and gave it to me for some reason. Just said, "You can have this, mate." Didn't even know it was him, to be honest, until my Brighton supporting friend told me after he walked off. Lua was also sitting in a private booth surrounded by like 3 women. Asked some guy he was with, maybe another player, to get him for a picture, but he was like, "Nah man, he's too smashed." So I guess he bought me a drink, so he's alright in my books. I've told this story on here before, however a while ago I was in London, on holiday from Australia with a mate. We went to some pub, and sitting in one of the booths was Cesc, Nasri, Thea and a couple of other players. I didn't want to bother them, but as I was walking past I had to say hello. I mean, that was the whole reason why I went to London, to see Arsenal, and they invited me to sit for a drink and a chat. I can't remember the specific details, but I woke up from my dream not long after that, and well, having never been to England, that is the closest I've ever been to seeing Arsenal. I work with a bunch of Premier League players. In the past few months I've met Harry Kane, Gary Cahill, Wes Brown, Adam Lallana, Fraser Forster and Leighton Baines. Swoon. I have to say, they've all been good people. Forster and Brown stand out in particular as just being very warm, friendly people. Baines was a bit shy, as was Cahill, which surprised me. Both were still very nice when they were comfortable. Lallana was very to the point and businesslike, but he was on a tight schedule, so it's fair enough. Harry Kane was exactly how you'd imagine him to be. To add to this, a little anecdote about Fraser Forster. We had to do a bunch of promo shots, one of which involved him looking as intimidating as possible. Not difficult for that giant. He started glaring in my direction. I made a comment about how that must be off-putting for strikers, to which he responded, "Actually, I try stupid faces to put them off." He then proceeded to demonstrate several. I responded, "Does it ever work?" "I don't think so. I'm just glad the cameras never seem to pick it up. I'd like at it. Hero." Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stories and the content. If you would like to see more, comment below and make sure to hit the like button or the dislike button. I'm sorry about that Zlatan story. LOLOLOLOLL. This was Soccer TTS. See you all again with some more content.